Hey, what's happening? It's a new episode of Vlogs. Your homeboy, Mr. Capone. You vote. Make sure you put the thumbs up right now before we start this. Share this, and let's get it cracking. Topic today, why was I taught not to say the N-word? You know what I'm saying? It's a lot of topic in our community in the last couple years. You know what I'm saying? And I've seen a lot of change in a couple years. You know what I'm saying? But the whole thing about it is why I was taught not to say the N-word. First of all, make sure you guys subscribe. Let everybody know. We're just talking about different things growing up in Nevada, in Southern California, and everything. All right. So let's get to it. Why I was taught not to say the N-word. Okay, first of all, I grew up in Southern California. And if you grew up back in the days, you already know the streets were rough. I mean, I'm not too old of a generation, but you know the 60 generations, what they grew up with. Obviously, I'm not from the 60 generation or grew up in the 60s, 70s, and all that. But in their generation, that's when the United States was first liberated the black Americans. And it's crazy to think about it. Literally 40, 60 years ago, before Martin Luther King in the United States, we were facing racism. And when you use that N-word, it was a very derogatory word. You know what I'm saying? It was used by slave masters. It was used by people who degraded you. Basically, everybody tried to change the form, you know, but at the end of the day, it was a very derogatory word. You know what I'm saying? From the 60s, 70s, and even in the 80s. Obviously, in the 80s, 90s, here I come, being born, grew up on the streets. When I was a little kid, I used to listen to X-Clan. If you guys know who X-Clan was. If you heard NWA back in the days, they used to have a song called NIG, you know what I'm saying? Like, real, you know, like all that shit, right? And it was a song, there was a meaning behind it. There was a song how the slave masters would call the black community, and they reversed the role on it and made that song like that, right? So if you from the gangbang days, you already know what it is, you know what I'm saying? The 90s and all that. So obviously, in the black community, using the N-word wasn't even real. You know what I'm saying? In their community, they didn't like it. Now, obviously, they made a song to flip the script. Some people got it, and, you know, fans are fans. You know, people raised on the streets and people raised from the media. So when they see these things, they thought it was a cool word to say, but really they were playing it the opposites, telling you what the slave master says. And I think from there, a lot of people picked on that word. But more like the African community was starting to say it more freely, right? Start popping up in songs in the 90s, here and there, but it was always still a derogatory word. And me growing up in the water in the 90s, I mean, in Southern California, the influence in LA, different from the whole United States, was the essays, you know what I'm saying? The homies, you know what I'm saying? I mean, the homies had a different slang. And first of all, the older homies would already know to use that word was already a derogatory word to the African community. It's like calling another community, Filipinos, they had words for them. Asians, they would have nasty words for them. Hispanics, they would have nasty words for them. Middle Easterns, Armenians, the list goes on, right? So to use that word was a very derogatory word. I mean, for even us looking at, to even say that to a black person, that's derogatory. First of all, homies wouldn't even say it to homies because homies got their own thing going on over here. So where I was raised at, we had our own program. I mean, the lifestyle of California was homies, bald heads, low riders. Everyone would mess with the low riders, creased khakis, blacks, Mexicans, essays, everyone, Asians, Armenians, everyone, white t-shirts, Charlie Browns. That was the culture of California. I won't say it's one culture, it was California's culture, but obviously Hispanics were one of the majorities that pushing that culture, and that was the culture of California, because there is the majority people in California. And there was their own way of talking. I mean, look at Kim Kardashians in the 90s. They were throwing up bottles. They're claiming bottles. They came party with us in the hood. You know what I'm saying? I mean, everyone. We used to have white girls from Beverly Hills come through. We have just every nationality kicking. We had homies. We would see homies that were Asian, Armenians, Japanese. I mean, there was like name a ethnicity. There was homies, all kinds of homies. It was just a melting pot, Southern California, and obviously the most dominant minority group was Mexican. So even the black culture with the low riders, they followed the homies structures and low riders and this and that. And obviously they were so deep that they got their own faction in the whole United States. There's different things, but they were different from everyone else in the United States. LA had its own stilo. So for us to say the N-word was already a no-no. The blacks, it was a no-no even for the blacks, right? They wouldn't even say, like, if someone said that, like, an OG would slap the little youngster like, hey, don't be using that word, homie. You don't know what that means. And then it went from the N-word to the throw the A at the end. Well, I'm just doing it like this. I'm making a little swag on it. Woo, woo, woo. The real ones didn't believe in that swag talk and that all like trying to be fishy. That word is a derogatory word. You can't make that cool in a certain kind of a way. So obviously hip hop is influenced. People are influenced by hip hop. People are influenced by their families. They're fueled by morals of the world. They're influenced by hip hop. Hip hop tells you wear a miniskirt. You got many men wearing miniskirts today. You know what I'm saying? Like the list goes on. We're in 2020. I can tell you about what influences are going now that people are following because of hip hop, because of music, because of idolizations of you know, stuff like that. So obviously I grew up in that time and we wouldn't say that word. It wasn't about anything else that we wouldn't say that word. We looked at it like, hey, that's theirs and we have our own thing over here. The homies have their own talk. We talk our own lingo. Everyone talks like this over here. Why we're gonna copy someone else's talk when they don't even talk like that, right? Then comes the 90s, 2000. It just gets more hip hop, right? It gets more watered down. So now, obviously, the black population, well, we can say it because, you know, we're that, right? So even back in those days, the homies were like, okay, they can say it, but we ain't gonna say it, right? So that's one thing I was raised as we don't do that like that, and form a structure from the homies was also a thing of like, we have our own trends. We have our own lifestyle. We don't need to act like somebody else or be like somebody else or play like we're somebody else. We do. We have black friends. I played basketball with black brothers. We did, but we had our own talk and they had their own talk. Everybody had their own talk, but everybody respected each other. It wasn't like they looked at that like, damn, can I borrow some Dickies, man? They would be like that and be like, hey man, can I borrow some of that? You know, like it was a self-sharing. But you know, in LA, gangs get deep and everything segregates too in a way. And that was another thing, the reason why also like, hey, we got our own thing. They got their own thing. So they started evaluating their lifestyles. Crips, Bloods did their things. Black community and the Hispanics did their things in the early 2000s. And I was taught from a young age, you know what, homies, we really don't use that word not because of anything else, more like a disrespect to the black brothers. Now it became cool later as we see things that are not cool that become cool and things that mean a different thing, like Thanksgiving to you guys. If you look way back in the days, Thanksgiving was a negative thing, right? What happened to the Native Americans. Today we all celebrate Thanksgiving like it's a positive day, right? So like, what do you mean Happy Thanksgiving? And some people won't know the meaning of it. Cool. And it's understandable. Years went by, 100 years, 2 years, 100 years went by, and the meaning has been watered down, right? But the real ones have education, have pleasure, and really understand what everything means. And I don't think anyone really explained the situation. A lot of youngsters on the thing, why they say the N-word and why they don't say the N-word, you know? And that's what the ignorance makes everybody not want to say it or say it, right? So it's like, hey, you don't say it, we don't say it, fuck that, boom, boom, boom. Our side, homies or whatever, say it, and then the other like, well, I could say it, man, I'm from this hood, and I can say what I want, woo. So there's no education level of the values of why people don't say that word, right? And there's nothing wrong if you even say that word. Obviously, in these days, times change. But if it's like, once again, you go back to history and know what the meaning is, and if you really knew about the meaning and how many people were hurt over this, how many people got killed over this, how many people got raped over this, how many people got thrown in the back of the bus of this, how many people's lives were lost over this, how disrespectful this was, then you wouldn't want to use it, homies. Straight up. I mean, if you were in that time and you witnessed what happened, you wouldn't want to use it. Just because something that was negative becomes cool now, that's cool. You can use it. It sounds cool. I'm cool. I'm flashy. I'm trying to be trendy. I'm trying to look cool. I might get more girls by saying it. I might get a rap deal by saying it. And that's the community that I grew up in. And in the late 2000s, I seen our community saying that a lot, right? And I just trip out, like, because, you know, there's no education value for the little homies. And no one has really spoke on it like that. You know, people just want to say, I don't want to say it out of there. There's a lot of racial elements. Even in our circle, people are racist to other communities, which they shouldn't be. And probably other communities are racist to other communities. And it gets into that. Nobody knows the meanings. They just hating on each other, and just racism goes on. But that's the reason why I was taught as a homie not to say it. You know, we had a lot of class. We had a lot of respect. We were very organized when we were youngsters, and we were on point. We knew what we were doing. We were creased up because we had a code, G code. The way we talked, the way we moved, we had our own thing. We didn't follow the influences of other things that were going on, because we were the influences of LA. We were Los Angeles, Southern California. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, man, that's why I would say it. And no disrespect to my black brothers, man. I mean, I obviously don't like to say it. It might even come into a rap song here and there, but you know what I'm saying? We don't say it. And in the last few years in our community, I mean, we had a lot of, what's that called? A lot of artists in our community saying that word. And once I spoke on something like that, and they're like, people started dissing me. Man, you don't know what's up. We say that word. We cool, man. We from the hood, homie. Like, you know, whatever, man. And then now, a lot of those artists that were used saying that, they don't say as much no more. The ones who get a little bit more famous, they think it's okay because the other communities, black communities, doing it. Of course, they're gonna do it, and they're gonna say it, and they're gonna say it in every sentence because it makes them feel more like they're doing big things, and it's understandable. No hate to them. That's how they're raised. They're raised with the music. We were raised with homies, and it's understandable. It's not their fault. Their older homies weren't there for them, or anything like that. And it's a generation gap, because our era was the gangster era, where a lot of homies were locked up, so they didn't get to see their parents. And there was a lot of misfunction. You see how the kids are changing today. But you know what? We do music, real stuff. I still rap G stuff, even though that's, you know, not happening right now. I still talk about love stuff. I still talk about whatever's going on in real life. And hey, now I'm here on podcasting and trying to let you guys know why I've never said that word. And no disrespect to people who say it. I mean, hey, that's how you're raised, and listen to YouTube at 8 years old. Daddy wasn't home, and you're bumping this music all night. It's going to be in your head. It's understandable. I mean, I was raised at my age. I had to, you know, learn life. I had to learn about, you know, God, this, that. Then I snuck out in the hood, kicked it with the homies, and the homies taught me the homies game. So, you know, I had that pleasure to learn about real life stuff. Some kids don't have that thing. And if you say it, there's nothing wrong with it. But if you want to educate yourself in knowing what happened in those days, and that's why I personally don't say it, and that's why we were taught to not say it, because our older homies in those times had a lot of respect. And even though we may be going at it with another faction or different people growing up, you know, there was racists on all sides, but we just wouldn't, you know, it's just like, hey, fighting and talking shit to each other is one thing. But, you know what, disrespecting like that. But everyone starts disrespecting. Everyone gets out of control. But, hey, the key is to stay solid as long as you can. I'm still here. Try to keep it solid as long as I can. I feel like we're last of a dying breed. But it's all good, man. If you say it, it's hip-hop. You go ahead and make yourself cool, right? It's cool. Like, what's cool is cool. You know what I'm saying? Hey, diamond chains are cool. I'm wearing diamond chains. You know what I'm saying? I really weren't into diamond chains, eh? But that's what it is. So, hey, that's my intake. Share this with everyone. If you like it, thumbs up. If you don't, who cares? You know, that's my opinion. Everybody has an opinion. Much love. Make sure you subscribe to my podcast. Your homie Mr. Capone, and tap him out, and we gone. Oh.